So in the Caesar cipher video, I mentioned that to really do a nice job, I mentioned that to write a good cipher program, we need to talk about loops. So let's do that. We'll talk about loops. So we're going to do something pretty simple to start with. I've just created a new project in PyCharm called Making Loops, and let's make a new file. So we have two types of loops. We have a for loop and a while loop. Let's start with the for loop. Alright, so we'll just make a couple comments really fast, looking at loops. The for loop, and just a little byline. So there are different ways to do this, but I think the easiest way to understand it is doing a range. So we're going to say for x, and that'll just be a variable, in range, and let's say 10, just because it's a nice even number, kind of a nice little set. And we can see our indentation, and we'll just say to print x. Oops, capital X. Alright, that's all I'm going to do. So just like in functions and other things, this indentation tells Python that this is part of that range. If I put in another print line, and I do program over, this will print once this finishes. So if I run it, we have 0 through 9, and then program over. However, if this was indented too, and we run it, then we're going to have some issues, and it's going to print it after every single one. So that indentation and paying attention to that indentation is important. Ending that indentation is when Python knows that this is done. Now, if we wanted to, I could add another value here. So if we do like 5, 10, and we run this again, it's going to actually start at 5 instead of starting at 0. And notice that it's not including 10 in this, it's going up to 10. So just something to be aware of. So if you actually want 10 to print, then you need to have it up one more. So that's essentially a for loop. Now we can use this with other things as well. When we get into arrays or lists, we can use it with that. We can use it with characters inside of a string, which is what we're going to do playing with ciphers. There's a variety of things that you can do with it. But that's essentially what this is that it's going to do something a number of times based on whatever variable inside of whatever. The other example would be, and I'm just going to duplicate this just to save a little bit of time, and this will be a while loop, and we'll change this to while, and now we need to change some code. So instead of for x in range 5 to 11, let's do while, lowercase while x. And if we want to convert this exactly the same, while x is less than 11. And of course we need to give x a value because x doesn't exist yet. And before we had done what, 5? I think we had done 5. So x is going to be equal to 5. That's what it will start as. And let's try giving this a try. Oh, wait. If we do this, it's going to be caught in a eternal loop because x isn't changing, so it's just going to print forever. So what we need to do, add in a change. So like x equals x plus 1 or something like that. So if we run this, there we go. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, program over. Now we could also do, instead of x plus 1, if we want it to be the same thing, just replace itself, we could also just do x plus equals 1. That'll do the same thing. There we go. Same thing. So there is essentially loops. Now of course you can play with this and change things around, so we could have x and we could put a comma in there, and we could put in a string if we wanted to. There we go. You have different options. Now this is just the basics. As you start using this with building your programs, you can do some pretty powerful stuff with it. There is one more quick thing to mention with this, and that's the idea of a break. So what a break will do is it will basically stop this early. It's not a failing of the loop, it's sort of more like a countermeasure. So let's say that we want this to only go in increments of 2, using only odd numbers, right? So we could instead make this plus equals 2, and then let's say that we want some sort of like safe measure in case it ends up being even for some reason. So we could do if x is equal to 6, then we just do break. Now right now if we run this, everything should work. We should get 5, 7, 9. So let's give that a try. 5, 7, 9. If we change this back to 1, it should break when it hits 6. There we go. So it broke, it got out of the loop, and it finished running the rest of the program. And you can include this break inside of a for loop as well, if you prefer.